So we're looking at quiz 16B, and here's our word. So what is this? What mnemonic device do you have? Trito, Isaiah, some people say. Pneumatos, right? Pneumatology. Orthodoxy, the straight praise rather than heterodoxy, which is the other praise.
I thought orthopedic and then you turned to be like.
Right, that's right.
If you want to be all
Thalassa. Okay. Diaphero.
I don't know why he got that.
What the heck is the use of a verb that specific?
So here's a theological word that may help you remember this word. And it's really used in Presbyterian and Reformed circles a lot. So if you're not exposed to that, it may not help you, but people will talk about adiaphora. Went half English, half adiaphora. And people use that in English, and it means things not to be carried through. And so Christians disagree on what's called adiaphora. Adiaphora would be how should you baptize a person? And there are people who say you need to immerse, others sprinkling, others pouring. If you step back the whole Christian church, people would say that's adiaphora, thing not to be pushed through. What's the right way to sing to God? Instruments or not instruments? People will say that's adiaphora. Some people are going to say only a cappella, some instrumental. Can you celebrate the Jewish feast days? Most people would say that's adiaphora. Now, if you said you must celebrate the feast, that's not adiaphora. But adiaphora are things that you don't carry through. And I think it's actually related to this word. Things that don't make a difference, whether or not you're a believer or not. Would Jesus be being fully God? Would that be adiaphora? No. If you don't believe Jesus is fully God, then you're outside of Christianity. So it goes, pharaoh is the verb, oiso, and then a ninka. And this is dia pharaoh, dia oiso, dia and ninkan. I have been carried through. Okay. What about mekri? All right. Doxa. Kephale. So if you have an encephalogram, what are they looking at? No, think about it. An encephale.
Your brain.
And what about if they're doing an encardiogram or an electrocardiogram?
Something with a heart.
Or, so medical terms are just Greek terms in fancy. It sounds better if you do it in Greek. Purpuros. Mnemonic device.
Purifier.
Pyre, a funeral pyre, or pyrotechnic.
Purification.
I have a question about this.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever this root and any Greek root that has that upsilon in it comes in English, it's always translated as a Y.
Why? Yeah.
Like, you know, synthetic pyromaniac.
I don't know why they do it that way, but they do. Anything that comes into Greek, the upsilon will come in as a Y. I actually think our word fire is actually this word over time. Can you hear it? Pour, for. See, you're just doing a very slight difference. Elason. So this is a comparative of mikros, elason, and I just had to memorize it. It's a irregular adjective. Don't really have a mnemonic device. Pous podos. So what's your mnemonic device?
I just knew the Greek measurement, that's what it was. So I thought of the pillar, pous pillar.
Oh.
That's as close as I got. Huh?
Cephalus.
A cephalopod, a podiatrist is a doctor that works on your feet. A tetrapod is a four-footed. A bipedal person is a two. A hieros.
Holy venerated.
So what does the word hieron arche come into English as? Hieros arche.
Hierarchy.
Hierarchy.
So, question about that one. Is that at all related to the word heresy?
Heresy is related to the word hiereo, which means to split apart.
Okay.
So I think that's where that's coming from. Uthus, immediately or straight. Okay, so this one's just crazy. People who are in classical Greek will call this Amy Ebo. And you say, what is Ebo? Ebo is the Latin term for I will go. So it turns out in Greek, there are two versions of Amy. One means I am and the other means I go. This is Amy Ebo. And the way you tell the difference is it has the circumflex. The other one doesn't have the circumflex.
Here I was thinking it was just a mistake in the chat.
So I should have I've got a textbook that has them side by side, and maybe next time I'll take a photo and bring it in and you can see it. But it's just two different versions of the verb ame. And when you get to their infinitives are actually spelled different. So ani is how you do Amy, I am, and eani is how you do Amy Ebo. And you don't see Amy Ebo a lot. It's only every now and then. The only time you've ever seen it in this class is when I put go dogs up on ite kunes. That's Amy Ebo, the imperative. So, and the participle's different. You can see it has the iota where Amy, regular Amy, doesn't have the iota.
Fast.
All right, mnemonic device.
Tachycardia.
Sorry?
Tachycardia.
Tachycardia. What is tachycardia? No, really, what is tachycardia?
Fast.
Faster heartbeat.
Your heart's going too fast. What's another word in English we get from it? A tachometer? Showing how fast the engine's going?
I thought of the word tax and how taxes quickly take your money.
There you go.
All of these fancy like medical words are just basic Greek.
Right.
Like this
Which
used
is
to be
strange, 'cause-
absolutely normal.
A lot
Right.
of it, yeah, for like medicine, they heavily encourage you to do Latin. And when I did Latin, we learned a few medical words, but not as much as GRK.
Yeah. I mean, so many medical terms are just Greek. All right, so we're speed reading.
Oh gosh, speed reading.
Therefore,
Greek.
Did you read this?
The bread of us, the subsistence bread, give to us today. Throw away for us our debts, plural, as we have thrown away for our debtors. And please do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil. I will make my name holy. Okay? My having been profaned among the Gentiles name, which you have profaned, they're desecrated. I like that. So look at the santai, that lets you know it's plural, in the ta.
the nations will know.
And they will know I am Kurios in the
Myself holy.
me to be made holy in you all. Okay, that's not English, so what do we do with it? When I am made holy, it's an articular infinitive. In the me to be made holy inside of you.
Now, is that passive or active?
It's passive, the thanai. So I watch a daily dose of Greek. That's helpful. It's an app, comes out every day, goes through one verse. His mnemonic for passive is when you have a theta, it's like you're laying back in a recliner, and he always draws a little man there laying back in his recliner. When I am made holy.
Before their eyes.
Right, literally according to their eyes, but we'll translate it in front of their eyes. Okay, and we're memorizing now. NRK, Ein halagos, Kai halagos, Ein prostantheon, Kai theos, Ein halagos, Hutos, Ein, NRK, prostantheon. Oh, faster than I could do it. That's not fair. That's not fair. You go, girl. Panta di altu agenita. Kai chorus to Udahin. I've created a monster.
Yeah, Hagaganon.
Hagaganon.
Alto, Zoe Ain.
Close. In alto.
Oh, yeah, in.
Hagaganon in alto. Zoe Ain.
Kai, hey Zoe.
Kai hey Zoe.
Oh, no, it's.
Kai hey Zoe. Ain. Toughest toenail.
Okay, and then Kai Tophos Tescotia, right?
Kai Tophos. Same mistake on the. You missed a little word. In Tescotia.
Fine.
Kai.
Hey, Scatia. Altu. No, Alta. Catalabin.
Alta. Catalabin.
Killing it. I practiced so much.
That's great. Just reading now. There came about a man, sent from God, named to him John. This one came into a witness, in order that he might bear witness, light, all might believe. Okay. But in order that he might bear witness. Can you get it in Greek? Pair plus the genitive. Peri two photos, maybe?
We didn't have to change about.
But you see, even though you weren't memorizing it, you were kind of using that ability.
Well, we've seen this so many times now.
There was the true light. Oh, we missed it. Oh, yeah. I totally bought in and missed it. There was a true light which enlightens every man coming into the cosmos. So in the cosmos,
And the cosmos did not know him or know him. He came to his own stuff, and his own stuff did not see him. As to
as many as received him, authority to become the technotheu, those believing into his name, who are not from bloods, nor the flesh, or begotten from God.
And the word became flesh and
There you go.
and we beheld
In its middle, glory, as of an only begotten.
from the love, grace and truth.
Good.
And having seen the crowd,
We shifted gears and you got it. And having seen the crowds,
he went up into the mountains, and when he
genitive absolute, comma,
his disciples came to him, and he opened his mouth,
and having opened his mouth, heirs.
he said to them, or he taught them.
So it's imperfect.
He began teaching them.
He kept teaching them. He taught them over and over, saying,
Blessed are the spiritually bankrupt.
oh, that warms my heart.
Blessed are the meek. No, morning. Let's start those
More Pentheo. How can we remember Pentheo? Penthuntes. Pen.
Painful morning. All of this started.
Penny is crying her eyes out. I don't know. Pentheo, would that do it? I don't know. I don't know any word in English that's going to help us with that. It'll help you when you see it on the test because the next one will say parakalephontes. So if you can get that means comfort, you have to know that this one's the opposite of comfort.
Is the English word like penitent from this?
That is a great question. I thought penitent is related to the word pensive, but I may be wrong there, and I think all of that's Latin. But that could be, I'll have to look at that. Blessed are those crying their eyes out. And do you see our little recliner there with the guy, passive face on tie? The meek
They shall
inherit the land by lot.
Blessed are the hungry and thirsty for righteousness, because they will be
stuff like an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'll go with that. Yes.
Blessed are the merciful.
Yes.
Merciful, yeah.
Kyrie eleison, man, if you can remember that, that's a Episcopalian and Catholic prayer that's often said. O Lord, Kyrie eleison, have mercy on me. Kyrie eleison me.
They will receive mercy.
They will be shown mercy.
Blessed are the pure in heart.
And how do you get a pure heart? Bara in me a pure heart, O God.
Because they will see God.
They will see God.
Blessed are the peacemakers, because they will be called sons of God.
Good.
Blessed are the persecuted on account of righteousness, because theirs is the kingdom.
Oh, heaven's good.
This is what's
Ooh,
so
today.
confusing.
Yeah, this was.
I don't understand how to make it make sense anymore.
Okay, so the key to this one is you phroneo with your frame. You phroneo with your frame, and if you can remember the word schizophrenia, means a divided mind. You have a divided frame. So what does phroneo mean? But make it a verb.
Belief in you? Or this
Phroneo
belief
this
we
way.
have?
So like, let it be in my mind.
Let it be in your mind. Can we do a little bit better than that? Keep it in mind.
Remain in mind.
Let it remain in your mind, or
Do not
Wellness?
Have this attitude.
have this attitude, have this frame,
What about understanding? Have this understanding.
have this understanding. Inhuman. In you. So,
Remain in your minds.
right, so this is a present active imperative from phroneo. So constantly be thinking this way among yourselves.
So because this is an imperative, does that mean that it doesn't need the conjugated form of echo?
No, you don't have to put, you put ego when you want to really emphasize it. So if you want to say you,
Echo is an I have.
right, or ego. What was your question? I thought you were asking about
Because-
I, me, you. who-
No, the conjugated forms of I have. It says, we've been translating this as have this, but there's no form of echo in here at all.
Right, right.
So I was wondering if that's
Think,
because
if
it's
you,
imperative.
no, if you did it, think this way. Phroneo this way. So logizo is more about logic, and phrein is more about just thinking. I think, like professional translators will go, have this attitude in yourself or something like that. Ha kai in Christo Jesu. So that can mean two things. Think like Jesus thought. That could be one way to take it. Think like you're supposed to think in church. How would you get that out of this?
Get that from the theology that the church is within Christ.
Is in Christ. And a lot of scholars go with actually that second way. And I think most people, the first time they read it, go the other way. um, Paul does use this preposition of the church hundreds of times of the church. So the second isn't as far out as it seems at first take. Continually think this way among yourselves, which even is in Christo Jesu, Hos, who in morphe theou,
Shape, form,
in right, huparko. What is huparko? Exist. Who existed in form of God, or who existed as God. Do you see that? Do you see how you get that out of that? So, question, is this talking about pre-incarnate divine Jesus, or is this talking about Jesus as Adam? We don't know yet. We're going to know after next time's reading, but we don't quite know yet which way to take it. But we will absolutely know after next time. Who being in form God, that's how I'm going to do it. Oh, this is hard. Harpagmon is the word robbery. Question?
I know the English verse, and what it says is that he did not take advantage of the equality in God. That he didn't abuse his divine
Right.
rights in Jesus.
So there are actually four different views, race rapta, race rapienda. The question is, do you see the end of it's an articular infinitive? The enai esa theou. The to be equal things with God. Do you see that? So what do you have to have? What is an articular infinitive in Greek? I'm glad you asked. An articular infinitive in Greek is the way they deal with what we do with a gerund. What is a gerund?
The ing, right? Or taking
Taking
a
a verb
verb
and
and making it a noun?
The way you take a verb in English and make it a noun is you take the verb and add ing, and then just let that participle function as a noun. Running is fun, right? That's a gerund. Greeks would say the to run is fun.
French is that way.
Oh, French does it that way too?
The
So-
infinitive can be to run or running.
So what you're doing there is you're just taking the infinitive, and when you add the to it, you're turning it into a neuter singular noun. The to run is fun. Now, it's hard to believe, but actually the way they do it is superior to the way we do it. Because we can only do running is fun. When you start getting into sentences like, in running is where one finds peace, that starts sounding a little stilted in English, doesn't it? I mean, it's still grammatical. In running one finds peace. Do you see how running there is the object of the preposition in? But it sounds a little off in English, doesn't it? In Greek, they'll do that all the time. In thee to run is peace. And it's always a neuter, singular, definite article. They don't do it with feminines. They don't do it with masculines. They only do it with neuters. And they're treating the infinitive as a noun. So it's an articular infinitive. And Hebrew does that too. Hebrew does it right, left, and center. they have a thing called an infinitive construct. And first time I saw an articular infinitive in Greek, I thought it was a Hebraism, but I came to find out that no, it appears everywhere in the language. So do you see how you get the equality with God, who did not consider the equality with God as harpagmos? So what does harpagmos mean?
It's almost like booty or a reward. That's the noun version.
Right.
You said like thieves, right? So it's something to be stolen.
Thievery. So what could that mean? He did not consider equality with God as thievery.
Something to be taken.
Okay, if it's Adam, if Adam's the background of this, what does it mean?
Well,
Something to be had.
Something to be had. He did not consider equality with God as something to be had. If Jesus possesses equality with God, how would you translate it?
Something to be held on to.
Something to be held on to, or something to be exploited. Those are two radically different ideas. And we're not going to know which way to go with it until we get to next time's reading. Who did not consider the to be equal with God harpagmos, all, but alton.
Himself.
So kenosis is the word empty,
Empties himself.
but he emptied himself. Okay, what does that mean? If he's God, did he empty himself of being God?
he emptied himself of the privileges that come with it.
Okay, here's what orthodoxy says. Okay, and there are people who fight with this. Okay, they're not fighting with me; they're fighting with orthodoxy. This is the statement. Remaining what he was, he became what he was not. So the black dwarf gave us that. Do you know who the black dwarf is? Athanasius. He was a little bitty black man who fought. The whole world had gone into Christological error, and they used to say to Athanasius, Athanasius, you're fighting against the world, and he said, contra mundum. Let's go at it, and he won. He saved the church from Arianism, and this is kind of his trajectory leads us to this statement: remaining what he was, he became what he was not. So he emptied himself. So there are people who will say he emptied himself of being God, or he emptied himself of the outward trappings of deity, or he emptied himself of the qualities. That would go against that a little to me. But the reason why the church ends up with this, in my opinion, and listen to everybody, listen to the arguments. The reason why the church settled on this is because how long did Jesus suffer on the cross?
One night, like 6 hours.
6 hours. How much did I owe God? Because I'm a finite man, I owe him. I've offended an eternal being, And because I'm finite, I owe him an eternity in hell. How can 6 hours on the cross pay for an eternity? So Orthodox is going to say this grand doctrine called the communicatio idiomatum, the communication of individual attributes, remaining what he was, he became what he was not, that Jesus is fully God and fully man, and that everything true of each of those natures he's experiencing in the unity of his person at the same time. So in the unity of his person, what he did on the cross is communicate infinity. And that's why he could pay not only for my eternal hell, but everyone's billions and billions of eternal hells, because he was able to focus that and suffer infinitely and eternally on the cross in a fixed period of time. And if you go with he ceased being God or something, you lose that. But you can't make it that Jesus's natures are so separated from each other that he's like two people with two computer monitors, like he's suffering in this one, but he's not doing that, because Jesus is one person. So the mystery of the incarnation is that God came up with a way at the same time that Jesus could be limited by a human body and at the same time be everywhere. Where in the unity of his person, he cannot know things who touch me. And at the same time, because he's God, he knows everything. So the Orthodox kind of catchphrase is remaining what he was, he became what he was not. And that's why grammatically, people who have really been in Greek will point out that it doesn't say he emptied himself. In Greek it says he emptied himself by taking the form. It's a modal participle. How did he empty? He emptied himself by adding something. By adding the morphe doulou. And that addition is forever. When we get to heaven, it's not like Jesus is going to disincarnate. He's incarnate in heaven forever. He has scars forever. He experiences everything that a human experiences forever. He will worship God in his human nature, in the unity of his person, forever while he's being worshipped. And he did that because he would rather die than see us excluded from the restoration of the Garden of Eden. He would rather die than have us live outside. What does this say? And having become in likeness as man, high point, this aorist passive from heurisco. Eureka is the word that we get from it. Do you see the word schema? That's where we get the word scheme from it. Schematic we get from it. And having been found in fashion as anthropos, he humiliated himself. This is the low as you can go. Tapenosis. Having become hearing under is that word hupeikaos. Having become obedient. Oh, and our vocabulary word today, until death.
But as far as death and death on the stake.
Right. What can you tell me about crucifixion in antiquity? I think we won't take the quiz today. We'll just talk about this.
Don't we get the word crucifixion from it? Or excruciating?
We get it excruciating from it. What can you tell me about it? Do you know they crucified people naked? Help me with that. Why would they do that? Do you know there are texts that talk about things that they did to people when they were crucified? Think of lynchings and things like that. You've got 1,000 people there mocking people they believe are murderers and child molesters and thieves and terrorists. What do you think? What do you think would happen to people like that? And did you know that the process of death on the cross isn't, you don't bleed to death, you actually suffocate? Do you know, I may have a picture of it here, if I can get to it. We've actually got a picture of someone's foot who was crucified, and they recycled the crosses and the nails, and they couldn't get the nail out of somebody's foot, and so they just cut the foot off. What do you notice about that, the way they crucified that person?
There's a piece of wood.
Right, so you know how you've got a heel bone? Like if you looked at a heel bone, it's just a round, but it's a little bit long. How did they crucify this person? This actual bone they found in a grave. Okay, have you ever turned your ankle? Like, that's an electric shooting pain. Have you ever, really turned your ankle? Like, where it ends up with a blood, like that hurts. Imagine you're going to suffocate to death unless you push down with your feet hard enough to get the power off your diaphragm. And you're going to repeat that over and over until you finally don't have any strength left. And you're going to do that while people are mocking you as... That's unthinkable. And in the midst of that, Jesus is praying for the goodness of the... If anyone ever loved his neighbor as himself, Jesus is praying for the... Thieves on both sides are blaspheming him, and he's praying for their goodness, and he even saves one. Today you will be with me in paradise. That's unthinkable. And that he's being humiliated. He's being tortured to death naked for 6 hours. Everybody left. John came back, the women were there. I don't know. And they're doing this because they want it to be so horrific that someone who sees it, they'll say, I don't want to ever break the law because I don't want that ever to happen to me. And Jesus is saying, I want you to so be back in the Garden of Eden that I'm willing to take what you deserve. I'm willing to do it in a way that's going to fix you on the inside. It's going to take away your heart of stone and give you a heart of real flesh. It's going to cause you to walk in my way. You will be careful to do all. You will live in the land I gave your forefathers. You will be my people and I will be your God. I don't know. That's encouraging to me. All right, so if you'll put your name on the test, I'll make sure that you get the points, and I'll see you on Wednesday.